and thanks for joining me. Today we have the Wroncho back on the table, and as you can tell, it has a body sitting on it. This is the Team Associated Trophy Rat body. I really like the way the body looks on here overall, but it needs just a little bit of work to fit better, to fit right, I think. So today I'm going to show you how to shorten a Lexan body. Let me show you how this one fits and what I need to do to it. See, overall the body looks good there, but I think it'd look a little bit better if it was moved back farther. See, I think it looks much better in the front, but the problem is, when I move it back farther, it leaves a lot of overhang in the rear. I don't want that much overhang in the rear. I'd like to have the rear up about there. So how am I going to split the difference? Well, I could lengthen the wheelbase, but instead, I'm going to take the body and shorten it right here in the middle. A lot of people would shorten them back here behind at the back where the tailgate is, but I want to do it in the middle because I think I'd rather have these body mounts come up right through the middle of this oil drum in the back. So how do we do that? Let me show you. The first tool you're going to need is a Sharpie. I have two different kinds of Sharpies here. I'm going to start with using the little Sharpie. What you want to do is figure where you want to cut. My plan is I'm going to cut right here, right in the middle of this, and that way I can slide the whole back half forward. So I'm going to make a little mark right here on top. That's where I want to cut it at. Make it come down just a little bit here on the side. There we go. Now on to the next step. For the next step, I'm going to use some blue painter's tape. I'm going to get me a length of the tape, and I'm going to lay it lined up with the cab here, come straight back and lay it onto the bed there. This way I'm getting a straight line across which to cut. You'll need a steady hand to do this. You may have to pull this up and redo it 2 or 3 times. But once you get it pretty straight, you're going to bring it down the sides. Make sure you're keeping the back edge where you plan to cut straight. The part that you're not going to cut at does not matter. Where you're going to cut is all that really matters here. Add just a little more tape to the passenger side. Now, if you're not sure if it's straight or not, look at your body line here, or any other body line you have going up and down, and then where your tape is. You do not have to do this next step, but I like to do this. I'm taking my big Sharpie and running it right down along the side of the tape. This gives me a nice solid line, and maybe in case the tape moves or comes off during cutting. I'm doing this because it gives me a nice solid cut line. Something that'll be real easy to follow. There we go. Now to make this cut, you will need some tools. You will need either a pair of Lexan scissors. These are Duratrax brand. I've done a review of these a while back. Great Lexan scissors. Or you'll need a sharp cutting tool like an X-Acto knife or a razor blade. Make sure it's a fresh blade if you're using these. I'm going to use a razor blade just because that's what I'm more comfortable with in this kind of cut. Okay, what you want to do is we're just going to cut straight on this line. We're not going to cut all the way through, we're just going to score it. Okay, I may need the scissors to do this hump, I don't know. You can take the tape off, especially if you're using the scissors, give you a nice clean sharp edge. But I'm leaving the tape on because it gives me something for my blade to rest against as kind of a guide. So here we go, just doing a light score. Coming around the edge, be careful coming on the edges, make sure you do still make the cut. That will be the tricky part. Use nice, even pressure. Once I'm done, I am going to take the scissors and just make a start to the cut right there. Just a small one. And now that should allow me to bend the body and cause it to break along the score line. Like so. I'm going to go do the same to the other side now. So I'm just taking the scissors and putting a little nibble in it. Just enough to get it started. Now we take it and we flex it back and forwards. And there we go. Now we're going to do the top here. We're just going to start trying to flex it back and forwards to get it to break as well. This will be the harder spot. You may have to take your scissors and get it started just a little bit. This will be the hardest just because of all the complex curves in this body here. They are good because they add reinforcement to the body, but whenever you're trying to break it, that extra strength is not as helpful. There we go. It came apart. Now that we have the body apart, let's see how well she'll go back together. Slide the back half up over top the front half. Oh, and that's perfect. Perfect. Now, before we make the mounting holes, or going to hold it together, I am going to take my scissors and round off the sharp corners. The reason why I do this, especially on the outside piece, is because it'll keep it from getting caught on things like rocks and stuff like that. If it's purely an on-road body, you probably would not have to worry about this as much. That looks much better than the long body did. Let's see how that looks on the chassis before I start bolting things together. There we have it. I have the body shortened up, and that looks much, much better to me. So I prefer a short bed truck anyway. So I like this look a lot better. So now what we're going to do is mount these solidly. Let's move on to that for the next step. And let me show you the tools and what we're going to use. Next up, in the next step, this is the tools I will use. I have a small electric drill here. I have the drill bits. I have a small one that's a little bit bigger, and then one the size of the screws I'm using. I'm using some M3x6 button head screws. I'm using black ones. I thought about using stainless, but I think we'll go with the black so they kind of hide a little bit better. I have 6 nuts for the backside as well as 6 washers for the backside. I have, of course, my MIP tool here to put in the bolts, and I have a Sharpie to mark the holes. If the holes aren't quite big enough or need just a little bit of adjustment work, I have my Duratrax reamer ready for that. So step 1, pick up your Sharpie and make the marks where you want your holes at. I'm going to put one bolt right there, and I'm going to put the other one up here between this body line. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Put one down here, the other one up here between this body line. Now you may not have to do this. Some people won't do this, but this is the way I do it. I'm going to put 2 bolts up here on top as well. Put one, I'm going to line them up with these straps here on the can, on the 55-gallon drum. There we go. Now all I need to do is drill these holes out on the small size. You can take the bodies apart, drill the hole in the first half, then put it back on and drill them through the second. I want to try to do them both halves at one time. At least for the small starter hole, and then I can take them apart to make the bigger holes. I'm going extra slow with my drill here. You want to go slow so you don't damage and tear the Lexan. And also by going slow, I have my finger on the back side of the hole so I can hold pressure against it while it's drilling and feel when the drill comes through. Work my way around. Now that I have all those holes finished, I go up to the next size drill bit that I'm going to be using, and I just go through them all again. This will be a piece of cake. We'll go right through them. You want to make sure you go through both pieces while doing this if you're doing them together. Next up, you guessed it, the next size drill bit. You could use your body reamer instead of going up the next size drill bit, but I like using the drill bit because it keeps all the holes uniform. Now let's try our screws and see if they fit in the holes. They do. And the length looks good enough to get a washer and a nut on the back side of them. If you can see that there. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to take the body pieces apart. I'm going to remove the tape, and I'm going to take my razor blade, and on the back side of each one of these screws holes will be a little bit of flash. See if you can see it here on this one. See this rough stuff? I'll take my razor blade and trim all that off and remove this blue tape like I said. Also, before I take it apart, you see where this part sticks down just a little bit? I'm going to draw me a little line there with my Sharpie and trim that back so it's even with the new bedside where it comes down. I now have the tape off and all the holes cleaned up. Do you want to show you something? The tape here did peel the coating, the protective coating off the body, but no big deal here for me. I will just cover the outside with tape before I paint it, and honestly this part will never be seen anyway, but just be aware that if you are using tape, it is a possibility. On some of the really good high quality bodies like Proline and stuff like that, the tape will not pull it off. Will not pull off the sticky. But with this Associated body, I guess it's just not as good of a film as other companies out there. But anyway, so now we put the body back together. Now what we'll do next is put the screws through, put the washer on the back and the nut on the back, and we'll just tighten them down snug. I'm not going to tighten them down super tight. I'll do that after everything's finally painted and finished. I'm just doing it now so I can move on to mounting this body onto the Wroncho. I always like to start with one of the bottom holes. Okay, I'll flip the truck over, put a washer on the back side, and then tighten down the nut just finger tight. Now moving on, I will do the bottom one on the other side. If the body is freshly painted and you're doing this, it would help to have somebody helping you do this. Like somebody holding the cab of the body while you put the bed onto it. Now I'm just going to move on up to the next one on the side. This one don't have a lot of room to get on the back of the nut, so I'm going to use my nut driver here to get it started. Always make sure you do leave enough room to put a nut on the back of them. Okay, now off to the other side. Moving right along. This one in. One goes a washer on the back. I know you might be asking, why am I not putting washers on the front? Honestly, a lot of times I don't, but with this being a rock crawler, and I'm sure we'll see a lot of abuse, I'll probably put some small ones on the front, just slightly bigger than the heads. I don't have any in my screw box right now, so next time I go to the hardware store, I'll probably pick some up. And honestly, I may end up painting these bolt heads whenever I paint the body, so in case of that, we'll have to wait and see. I did that on my Apex. Team Associated Apex car. I put a Mercedes body on it that has a two-piece rear bumper, and it had black M2 screws for it, and I did end up painting them whenever I put the bumper on. Hides the screws and makes them hard to see unless you're up close and looking for them. The screws on this one may be hidden in a black stripe or black spot, so it may not need to be painted. I'm just actually not sure what kind of paint job I'm going with yet. There we go, the body's back together as one piece. Looking good. Once it's painted and with this line clear up here against the cab, you won't even really be able to tell it's been cut other than the screws in it. A lot of times people will cut them back here at the back, which is cool if all this lines up, like you have wheel wells you have to worry about and they line up whether you need them to, and it's a good way to shorten the body. And most truck bodies, this one not so much, but most truck bodies will be wide at the front and taper a little bit to the back, so that makes it easier to slide the pieces up over. But this one fit together really, really well. Really happy with it. Let's set it on the chassis now, see how it looks. And there we have the finished product. Looks much better on there. Much shorter back at the rear, not as much overhang. Fits much closer at the front. I just need to trim the front of the body now whenever I get my bumper on and determine where the body's going to sit height-wise. It'll be right about probably there. I thank you for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope maybe you learned something. This is, like I said, a good, easy way to make bodies fit trucks that they're not intended for, or to make adjustments that you need to make. You can do this with the front, you can do it with the rears. Most people do it with the rear because it's less noticeable. If you have any questions or comments, please drop them down below or hit us up on Facebook or Instagram. Speaking of Instagram, we do post a lot more on there than we do here, and we post a lot of stuff there that you never see here. So you might want to check it out. Link it's down below as well. Please feel free to subscribe to this video and also give us a like. I would appreciate that. And until next time, happy RCing.